He was fascinated by the native culture American and her bravery in the face of the white settlers who stole her land. Native Americans had more than 250 treaties broken and received the worst swaths of land that no one wanted. The history of Native Americans is similar to that of the Palestinians. The first Palestinians were living in the Palestine for thousands of years, and suddenly the Jews replaced them and the Jews' natives were forced to stay in refugee camps, in which they still live. I asked my parents how Palestinians were different from Native Americans, and the only answer he received was, "Why do they want to kill all the Jews and throw them into the sea?" My understanding of the Palestinian people placed me above all the Jews, their leaders and rabbis whom I once saw as wise. How could a good Jew deny that Palestinians were killed and expelled of their land to make way for Jewish settlements? What justifies it, this act of ethnic cleansing, the fact that many Jews died in the Holocaust? Or is it because the Bible says it is our land? Any book that justifies such a thing would be immoral and therefore would not come from God. When I entered I became interested in philosophy and read many of the great thinkers of the past. I spent time with good friends who read philosophy and who walked with me the rugged paths to the truth. One of the philosophers who had impact on me was the Jew-born Spinoza. Spinoza was a student of the Talmud from the 17th century that questioned everything he was taught, such as the belief in the afterlife, a belief that exists nowhere in the Torah. Indeed, many of the early Jews did not have this belief. Spinoza was expelled from the Jewish community because of his views. I enjoyed reading your reviews about the Bible, which according to him could not be understood literally without an enormous amount of contradictions and problems. Then I read two significant books that completely eliminated any sympathy that's still remaining for Judaism. The first book was called, On the Jewish Question, The Jewish Question, in free translation, by Abram Leon. Leon was a clandestine communist organizer in Belgium during World War II, and he was later captured and killed at Auschwitz. Your book answered old question: why did the Jews survive for so long? He gave a superb historical account of the Jews from the time of antiquity to the present day and shows how their survival was not a miracle. In the words of Karl Marx, it was not in spite of history that the Jews survived, but because of the hers. First, he shows how much of the Jewish community left Israel for self-will before the destruction of Jerusalem. Then he explains that the Jews, they were valuable to the kings and nobles of the Middle Ages because of their condition as intermediaries. Then it shows how during the accumulation process the status of the Jews finally took a downward turn, being subsequently persecuted for their usury. The second book that it affected me a lot if it was called, Who Wrote the Bible? Who Wrote the Bible, in free translation, by Elliot Friedman. He takes on the historical task of Spinoza. The book proves that the Torah was indeed written by 4 different people. Friedman explains to us that there were 2 different traditional accounts of the Kingdom of Israel and Judah, and that a redactor intertwined them to arrive at the Bible we have today. In addition to reading philosophy with my friends, we also take on many different political causes in our youth. We have experienced everything from republicanism to communism. Read all the works of Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Mao and Trotsky. I found it on Marxism that I felt was missing in my life. He believed that I found all the answers to everything and thus felt intellectually superior to all. The philosophy bandits, as I like to call us, they gathered and formed their own socialist club. We went to activist events such as protests and labor strikes. After finding all the different cult groups that surrounded the political left in America, we were all disgusted with the way they acted and denied reality. No revolution would be made in a country with this kind of people. The struggle for social change cannot be won with methods of the past. Although it had given up fighting for revolution, I became an active organizer in favor of the Palestinians. That was the main cause for which he was very passionate. We're very small and attacked by the majority, which made me proud. Wanted the world knew that not all Jews are bad people. I'm embarrassed to see people I once admired supporting Israel's aggressive regime. The lies that come from Israel are nothing but Holocaust denial. Although it had given up on Judaism and looked to this world as the supreme goal of Judaism. Man, I have never really been an atheist. However, he had a strong hatred of all religions and believed that it was a tool of the people in charge of maintaining all under control. When you see the way fundamentalist Christians act in America, doing things like denying science and clinging to values of the old whites, you can understand why I was skeptical of all the religions. Nor did the way the Jews acted in relation to Palestine helped. However, I continued to believe in God in the back of my mind. But without religion, there was a great emptiness in me. Sometimes I even wanted to be a religious person, because he felt that they had happier lives. Honestly, I don't remember what sparked my interest in Islam, especially after many years of being strong anti-religious sentiment. As a child, I remember listening to my mother talking about Islam and, like Muhammad, may the mercy and blessings of God be over him, worship the same God as we do, and also as the Jews were related to the Arabs through Abraham. So, in a way I accepted Islam as just another religion that worships God. Have a vague memory of my cousin, a chassis, who told me that if he gave up his life as a Jew and lived as a Muslim, he would not be committing no sin. Looking back, I am astonished to have heard such a thing. When September 11th happened, there has been an increase in anti-Islamic propaganda in the news. From the beginning I knew it was all a lie, because I had already developed the perspective that everything in the media protects the interests of those who control it. When I saw that the most militants in the attack on Islam were fundamentalist Christians, Islam began to seem more attractive to me. I thank God for what I learned in my days of activist, because without the knowledge of society and the media, I would have believed in all the garbage I heard about Islam on television. One day, I remember listening to someone talking about scientific facts in the Bible, and I wondered if the Quran contained scientific facts. I did a search on the internet and discovered many things amazing. I subsequently spent a lot of time consuming articles about various aspects of Islam. I was surprised at how much the Quran was logically consistent. As he read the Quran, he compared its moral message with what I learned from the Bible and understood how much better it was. In addition, the Quran was not boring like reading the Bible. It's fun to read. After 5 months of intense study, I said my Shahada and became officially Muslim. Unlike in my old religion, everything in Islam makes sense. All practices such as prayer and Ramadan I already understood. Although he imagined that Islam was like the Judaism, in which a series of different rules are followed in a dogmatic way, he was wrong. My understanding of the world was also compatible with what the Islam taught me, that all religions are basically the same, but they were corrupted by man over time. God didn't make a name called Judaism and Christianity. God taught people only Islam, that is submission to him alone. It's plain and simple.